That's the wonderful thing I love about this movie. It's very clearly divided into two plots, an A plot, a B plot.
Correct.
And there's a bit of a bridge that connects the two.
Yes.
Honestly, I felt like both of the movie plots could succeed on the writing just if you focused on one or the other. Both of them would have been an
Agreed.
excellent movie.
Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we'll be discussing the new movie, American Fiction.
Rebecca, let's get started.
Normally when Thelonious, or as he's known to those quite close to him, Monk, sees authors trading on what others expect of him, he feels they're watering down the universal experience. However, after spending time with his family, and in drunken contemplation, he composes a work that plays to the whims of the greater public as he sees them, complete with a pseudonym. But as Monk and his editor see the book expand into circles beyond their own, Monk has to ask himself, should he keep withholding the truth of himself or the book?
Rebecca, we were very excited about this movie.
This trailer is funny.
It's a joke. The most lucrative joke you've ever told.
Oh, it is
Beat
funny.
after beat lands. I haven't laughed this hard at a trailer in a while.
What do you see in my brother?
He's funny. Like sad funny.
Okay.
Like a three-legged dog.
I see it now, like somebody dying on a toilet.
I agree. I think there are 2 or 3 trailers for this movie.
I remember seeing 2 because the first one I was like, I really want to see this. The second trailer, which kind of focused a little bit more on some of the story
Yes.
behind the actions, really sold me on it.
The great thing about the trailer is, honestly, it only told one aspect of this movie, and there were layers in this movie.
Stick around and help with Mother.
I gotta get home.
It's 8 in the morning.
I'm not flying the plane, Mom.
This movie is incredibly nuanced. Even with the fake story, you can still see elements of Monk's true self creeping in.
I like Monk's true self. It was funny, too, because this movie started off very limited release. It was a little bit further away from where we weren't able to make it. Soon as it came closer, we were like, oh, we're going. The day it came closer, not a lot of people because it was a later showing, but people were laughing out loud in the theater. I mean, we were, obviously our team was laughing, but there were other pockets in the theater. People were finding this funny and they were getting the irony of it.
Monk, your books are good, but they're not popular. Editors, they want a black book.
They have a black book. I'm black, and it's my book.
You know what I mean.
They weren't laughing at Monk.
They were laughing with him.
Exactly. And the part that I loved, which is so many truths to this movie, and it was hard to hear because you're thinking about, as people, this is the experience.
This is the experience that they're living right now.
Yeah. And so that's the part where it's, what do you do with that? How do you empower that? But the whole movie wasn't just about that. That was one aspect of Jeffrey Wright's character where he was frustrated because, as you said, he went home. His mom is there. His brother shows up on the scene. His sister is there.
You really see how he developed into the person that he was and how these other characters created their relationships even without seeing much of the characters interacting beforehand.
That's true. That's a great point because it wasn't as if when his employer said, hey, go home, take some time, catch your breath.
You need some time off. Why don't you go back and spend a little more time with your family?
You know that all successful writers are tormented by their family.
It wasn't as if, like you said, we knew his story. We didn't know where he came from. And from the moment he walks in, I love it. He goes in and he sees his mom. And remember what his mom says? He opens the door. His mom gives him this big hug. So sweet. You remember what she says?
You look fat.
Okay.
You look fat.
I laughed because to me, that's what family does. They notice whatever weakness. He's like, well, I kind of stopped exercising a little bit. His sister was so funny. And at first you're thinking, you don't really know what's the relationship because it's this very serious moment when they first connect. And then they start laughing. They're in the car. I love the scene where she said, oh, I loved your book. It was so helpful. It was great.
Come home, baby.
How the fuck?
I don't feel like much of the writer lately.
Your books change people's lives.
And something I've written never changed your life.
Absolutely. My dining room table was wobbly as hell
my God.
before your last book came out. It was like perfect.
And you remember what she said about that?
She said she put it under the table to balance it out. That feels like something you'd hear a sibling say. The dialogue in this movie feels very real.
Oh, very real.
And it also feels like something you would use as a storytelling device. That's a really fine line to do. And I think Cord Jefferson did an excellent job with this.
It was. It felt very real. And I laughed because I could hear my brother saying the same thing to me. I know.
I elbowed you a few times on purpose for that.
I laughed. I've written many things in my day, and I crack up because the people closest to me said, oh, it would make a great doorstop, or it made a great doorstop, or hey, that was great kindling for my, just like, wow. It cracks me up because, like as you said, it felt very authentic. I remember his brother coming in from Arizona.
Sterling Brown did an excellent job.
But there was such emotion out of the gate, and I don't want to spoil it. I'm so excited about it. I really loved it, and I want to say, and this, oh, what about this and this? But it would then be a spoiler review, and I don't want it to be.
There's also some characters that are new to this environment. I want to spotlight Erica Alexander's performance specifically.
Okay.
She's getting nominated for an Independent Spirit Award specifically for this role.
Oh, nice.
But it's so cool to see people who have been in the business really take that experience and translate it to something that flows as easily as this film does.
With the issues it covered.
Yes, it does not brush them off. They get into some heavy, heavy territory. You're laughing the whole way, but man, it's going to smack you over the head with the truth.
Here you go.
Right. Yeah. Wait a minute. Why are these books here?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that this author, Ellison, is black.
That's me. Ellison.
Yeah.
He is me, and he and I are black.
Oh, bingo.
No bingo, Ned. These books have nothing to do with African American studies. They're just literature. The blackest thing about this one is the ink.
I don't decide what sections the books go in, and no one here does. That's how chain stores work.
Right. Ned, you don't make the rules.
I'm just gonna put them back after you leave.
Don't you dare, Ned. Do not you dare.
I'm still thinking about the dialogue. It was that smart. It was that real. And then there were really sad moments. And as you said, the first trailer talked about the spoof of a book that he wrote. And that in of itself is funny, meaning he's saying, really, this is what you think. This is what I'll give you. Let's see what happens. Nobody's going to do anything with it. It was almost like I'm venting something because I'm so frustrated. But then it comes about that it picks up. They're like, oh, you can make money with this. You could make maybe a movie with this. His editor and friend is like, oh my goodness, they love this.
There's already so much buzz because of the movie deal.
Michael B. Jordan is circling.
We want to put him on the cover in one of those scarves, I guess you would call them, tied around his head.
A do-rag?
Do-rag, that's it. Do-rag and a tank top with the muscles showing.
Something called the fire department.
But you look at what is the motivation. Is it he's just so frustrated with the industry? That's the initial thought. You go, yeah, he's frustrated. He's going to do something. And then all of a sudden it takes this sharp turn. And him thinking about it, you go, oh, well, why is he doing it? Is it just to, kind of go, yeah.
Stick it to the man.
Stick it to the man. I know, really, that's the thought. But it's not. There's a family member who needs help. And I don't have the resources. I don't have the money to do that. And I love this person so much. I'm willing to do this. And it just went, it didn't feel like dark and heavy, but it felt
very human.
It felt very human. Who wouldn't do that? And I think many people, our cinema community included, would consider that to say, it's not about my ego. It's not about me going, yeah, I've got you. It's, how do I take care of my family? And this is how I can do it. This is right in front of me. And it's not unethical. It's just out of the ordinary.
One of the things this movie does really well that I like is it presents these ethical dilemmas for all of our characters.
Yes.
And it presents them respectfully.
Very, very respectfully,
But
I
it
think.
still adds questions in your mind, like what is the, quote, right thing to do? and what is the honorable thing to do, because sometimes the two of them may be two very different things in this situation.
I be standing outside in the night.
Deadbeat dads, rappers, crack. You said you wanted black stuff. That's black, right?
I see what you're doing.
To understand the underlying piece and to understand his relationship with his sister, his relationship with his brother, the neighbor next door that he's wanting to get to know more, you start to understand that. But there's such a likable quality.
People want to love you, Monk. You should let them love all of you.
One of the things that I think can be tough for a realistic movie that wants to be satire, and I'm not saying wants to be satire like this movie fails at being satire. This movie succeeds quite excellently.
Yes, agreed.
They're offering $4 million for the movie right.
Yes! The dumber I behave, the richer I get.
This is the kind of quality I was looking for in The Kill Room.
Oh, I remember The Kill Room with Uma Thurman and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
This is the kind of sharp snappiness I expect from my satires. I think the tough thing when you're aiming to be a satire is how far do you stick the needle in before the audience goes, I'm being poked and I don't like it.
Look at what they expect us to write.
Would you read an excerpt?
Yo, Sharonda, where you be going in a hurry like that? If and you gots to know, I was going to the pharmacy.
It's interesting to compare it to The Kill Room because I remember seeing trailers and we reviewed Kill Room on Cocooncast very early on in launching our channel. And I recall, as you said, it had the potential. And it was about deception and art, and it's interesting. It had less of a personal feel to it. This movie had very family, relational dynamics, as well as this spoof of a book that he wrote. The Kill Room fell so flat in the satire piece, to the point where it was a painful movie to watch. Not painful in the respect of it feels so real. Oh gosh, I can't watch it. This is really not a great movie. This had so many ideas, and I appreciated the fact that I was able to follow every idea. Nothing felt crazy. That's the other thing. It felt so genuine because I think the family and the relation part held together the book piece. I think, honestly, I would have watched a movie just around the book and him going around and figuring out, how do I do this? Do I want to continue to do this? But the relational piece to me made it for such a fabulous movie. So much better than I had even hoped it would be.
That's the wonderful thing I love about this movie. It's very clearly divided into two plots, an A plot, a B plot.
Correct.
And there's a bit of a bridge that connects the two.
Yes.
Honestly, I felt like both of the movie plots could succeed on the writing just if you focused on one or the other. Both of them would have been an
Agreed.
excellent movie.
And to combine the two and to do it successfully, the movie didn't feel too long. I appreciated the ending. It was funny to the end. And I'm not saying the very end was funny. However, it was, how do I end this? The concept of how do I end this? How do I end this?
This movie gets very meta in some ways.
It was funny in that respect. The hard part is when you walk away, there is so much truth you're still thinking about. So it's not, oh, I can forget this movie. It doesn't matter. It's how do we respond? And as a culture, what do we find interesting, and how do we, I wouldn't say judge, but how do we understand someone else's experience? And our ignorance, my ignorance, it shows. And for it to be on the screen to say, you don't get it. I know I don't get it. I've had close friends of mine all through my life say, hey, this is my life experience. I want you to understand my life experience. Just like I've pulled people aside and say, hey, this is my life experience. It had that feel to it. And I think that's a sign of a good movie too, that you walk away and say, hey, how do I contribute to this? Or how do I help this? How do I change this? How do I further this? And if I'm walking away being challenged, and not in it, let me hit you upside of the head, but hey, ask and question yourself, what's going on for you? I think that's a good movie.
I pointed this out when we watched Color Purple.
Yes.
That experiences are something that we can learn from. There's going to be uncomfortable moments when we watch movies like this.
Correct, and there should be in my mind.
On every side of the aisle on this.
Yes.
Not just one specific target audience. I think it's important that we sit with those moments, we process them, and we learn from them.
I would
saying.
agree with that. Great advice. Do we have any questions from the box?
Both critics and audiences are looking for unique stories that haven't been told and are told really well. Do you think this fully qualifies?
I'd say this is a fantastic qualifier for this. I think this is a good opportunity to not only get a dialogue going, but to ask yourself, what's it like for somebody else?
Absolutely agree with that. This movie is getting such buzz. And I know when we were talking about, deciding what movie, and as a Cocoon Cast, we decide, one of the things that I know for me was, I hope this movie tells the story well, because it does create dialogue, it does create discussion, and it far exceeded that for me.
The creative team behind this, I can't overstate this enough, are phenomenally talented.
Very much.
And it's nice to see something that reflects the fruits of those talents. Cord Jefferson wrote a fantastic show in the form of the Watchmen miniseries. I highly recommend it. It's a great glimpse of what it means to be a superhero in America when you're not exactly what's considered the picture of the average American.
Do we have any other questions from the box?
Being that this movie is pretty unique and the story is very original, pick a few movies for each of you that would represent, if someone liked that movie, they're going to like this movie.
I think in terms of family dynamics, the realness that kind of comes through for me, I immediately think of Little Miss Sunshine. Definitely comedic beats landing, but there's some very rough truth that comes through in between. The family was dealing with social economic expectations of them, but they're also dealing with each other's messy relationships.
All in a little van. Exactly. I think for me, I think of the show we watched, which is Miss Maisel. Also, I think it's an Amazon property as well as this movie, which is interesting. But I think about Miss Maisel back in the 50s, Jewish woman, a comedian, the expectations the family had of her, cultural expectations, and so many different relationships. Mom, dad, her kids, her ex-husband, spoiler alert if you have not seen. But there's a lot of humor dispersed in it, as well as really becoming invested in her, not only her, but all the relationships and the challenges she experiences.
Sterling Brown is also in that, so
that is a good point.
And he plays a pivotal role in some of Maisel's realizations.
Yes, that's a great point.
Without spoiling, of course.
Exactly.
A film I specifically want to highlight, and some of you may remember the show on Netflix, is Dear White People. It deals with Black people's expectations of simply being Black around each other. And it also talks to the audience about what our relationship looks like with interacting with the Black community.
The other one that I'm thinking of, which is a book, but also a performance, which we've seen, and I know the book, you love the book.
The book I read every other year at least.
Correct, and that's Brian Copeland.
Not a genuine Black man.
Not a genuine Black man. And there's a part, and it's not, he's Black, the story is about a Black man. It's his experience growing up in the Bay Area in California as a Black man, and how does he find that peace? And his other book, The Waiting Period, talks about depression. He really hits it hard.
And it really forces the audience to reckon with a question that a lot of Black people in modern America ask themselves: what is Black enough?
Yes.
Is it Black enough when I interact with this person in this way? Is it Black enough when I interact with another Black person? Are my experiences valid enough to be considered Black? That's what this entire movie asks.
That's exactly right. And I find it so unfortunate that that's a question, right? It's like, where's the line? And to not take away from that experience, I do think that that's a somewhat universal experience in terms of, do I fall here? Do I fall here? Where do I fit? Where do I fit? Who do I belong to? And is it ever enough?
And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad you mentioned Mrs. Maisel. I know a lot of people kind of pick up on, oh yeah, she's trying to be funny, But a lot of her experiences are her trying to justify it to herself. Yes, I belong in this space. Yes, I identify with this group, but am I not enough of this group to, quote, count? We mention these things because these things are well known in their spaces. I know Mrs. Maisel has been nominated for countless Emmy Awards. Just to name a few, I know Dear White People also got nominated for a large amount of awards during its run. If you like any of this stuff, check out American Fiction. It's worth your watch.
I would agree with that. It would be easy to say, I don't need to see this movie, or I don't really care about this. But as you said, if you know any of these properties, if you've read Brian Copeland's book, if you've seen him perform, if you have seen any of these movies, I agree. I think American Fiction falls along those lines where you will really like this movie. Rebecca, is that time to show 5 moths? I guess they're writer moths this week. 5 moths, scale 1 to 5. What do you think?
5 moth movie.
Whoa, 5 moths. Number one reason.
This movie kept landing the beats it set out for itself, whether that was comedic, dramatic, or just real life experiences. I think this movie did this well.
Clearly, very well if it's a 5 mother.
Totally.
Great. All right. I'll put 5 moths back in my camp. I think you probably already know, though.
Yeah.
On a scale 1 to 5, I would say 5 moth rating. Yay! I think this movie hit every right note it could have. There was nothing that felt lacking. The music was good. The cinematography was good. We focused on the screenplay, but the directing, the acting. There was nothing in this movie, I think, that could have been done better.
And I try to think sometimes, how would I do it differently?
Sure.
Just in case to kind of start to look at a movie in a different perspective. I can't really think of anything because the definitive take is this movie, and the definitive take is awesome.
I would agree with that. I've laughed because we've talked about different movies where we're like, how would I do it different? Or you're thinking of a different movie.
Oh, that's a common one with us a lot.
Correct. It's like, oh, I'm thinking about this movie. But in this, I was so enveloped, and I was so disappointed that there was so few people in the theater. And I understand it went from very, very limited to more, but still not wide release. But my thought is anybody that can see this movie needs to see this movie and not, oh, wait for it to come on streaming.
See this movie now.
See this movie now if it is in a theater near you. And please, cinema community, if there are other movies that you think our cinema community would love to see after seeing American Fiction, we would love to have you comment below.
I'm so happy this movie wasn't given up on. I know the book has been around for a good while.
That is correct.
But I'm so happy that they dove into the book and brought it to us in a newer format that could speak to more people.
And a different, it's not necessarily a different generation, but a new group of people that may not read the book or may have forgotten the book, because so many books come out and unfortunately do get forgotten, even really great ones. Thanks for joining us. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Watch the notifications for a review of the new movie, The Book of Clarence, on our weekly show, Movies and More, where we will have more movie reviews, the latest Hollywood news, and commentary with snark, meant to amuse.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this movie review, you might click the link to check out our review of The Color Purple, or click the other link to watch our review of Poor Things.
Remember, cinema community movies are better together. Thanks for watching. See you in the next review.